Hello and welcome back to the tutorial series on dual-wheeled or Jar-Kai spinning. Last time around I showed you a dual-wheeled version of a Super Obiani, which built on the regular Obiani, this spin, by adding 2 beats, 1 more up front, 2 more in back. It was basically that. And that laid the groundwork for the next move, which I want to show you, which is a dual-wheeled full plum flower. And there are 3 versions of this that I'd like to cover. But the reason that we went with that Super Obiani is, if you notice, it has pretty well all the beats of a plum flower spin. It's got 2 up front, 3 in the back, for 5 beats. It's like a plum flower spin, except contained on one side of the body. Okay. If I were to do the plum flower spin, just so that you can see the difference, this is the Super Obiani. More movement with the arm. Crossing to the other side of the body, and we have the plum flower spin. We're just adding those 2 beats over there, on that side. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. To get the sabers to the other side of the body, though, when you're dealing with dual-wheeled, is a little bit tricky, because we're going to have sabers on the same side of the body at the same time, moving in opposite directions, which is going to lead them to collide with each other. Okay, to avoid that, actually, I guess there are 4 different versions of the Obiani I'll cover. One of them is one that is covered in another video by Venturous. I'll link that in the description for this one. But he uses a stall. Basically, he waits with one arm while the other arm does that Obiani. That plum flower. He waits at the hip. Okay, now that can certainly be done. That's one version. Keeps the blades from running into each other by stalling the one blade until the other one is finished. Another way to do the same thing, if we adjust the timing a little bit, we don't have to have that stall. You might have noticed while I was doing it that the stall was not very pronounced because I slowed down a bit in the back. Okay, by adjusting the timing, we can actually get this. The trick is going to be that over the top cross from the upward beats. This is the trick, because this move right here is going to make this kind of jerky and clunky when we try to do it together. It's kind of like swimming. We're going to have to be doing this. You notice how my arm is making an L and I'm running it back over the top of my head? Okay, that's basically what we'll be doing in the dual wheel, or in this version of the dual plum flower spin. And by making that move across the head quicker, we can weed out that pause that was in the last version. We just have to tighten it to the top of the head. Okay, so this is another version. Okay, another variation on this sort of accommodates for the difficulty of this reach across the top of the head. If we want to make this easier, we want to make ourselves not have to do this jerk to the side when we do it, okay, we can add another beat up top, okay, making for a 6-beat plum flower. And basically, that other beat, where we would usually go like this, back down, we're going to hit up. Okay, let me back up so you can see it. You notice that extra beat over the head? Okay, if we add that extra beat in, it accommodates for that timing and gives us more time so that we don't have to do that body jerk. And what that looks like, again, I'll back up so that you can see it. My voice will get a little bit out of range, but And the way that I'm keeping the blades separate when I do this is I'm keeping one rotating in front of my body while the other is rotating behind the body. Okay, I'm using my body to separate the blades. Okay, so that version, it's basically adding 2 beats to the clock face. Remember, the clock face was add 1 beat and you get a plum flower. Add 2 beats and you get that sort of modified plum flower. And you notice that the blade is mostly staying sort of in this plane, whereas the other one will be staying behind when this blade is in front. I'm turning my body to change which blade is in front. Okay, and if you work on that, you'll find that it feels a lot like that Super Obiani in a lot of ways, because of this sort of roll over the shoulder. That's kind of what we're doing when we throw in that extra beat. You notice that the blade is on this side of my arm, controlled with my index finger and my thumb. Okay, so those are 3 versions. The 4th version that I wanted to cover is one that I've been working on. I like it better, though there's not nearly as much movement with it, which is partly why I like it better. Less action, or less collision, less flailing arm, or fewer flailing arms. Basically, what I'm doing is, or what I do, is to modify the plum flower spin itself. To change it, instead of this reach across the body here, I'm going to contain it a little bit more. I'm going to come out of this Obiani forward. I'm basically taking the direction of the plum flower from being so much to the sides and focusing it forward. Okay, so come out of the Obiani forward. And then we're basically doing a forward figure 8 here for the upward wield. This is basically what we're doing. We've got the Obiani to the side, and then we change the direction, change the plane, bring it forward for an upward figure 8, and then and then off of that upward figure 8, we change the plane to a downward. Okay, by working in front of me and to the side, I'm working on 2 different planes, so I can change an upward wield into a downward wield without having to fully cross my body. Before, I was working on the same plane, just different sides of it. Okay, if that doesn't make sense, then see one of my earlier videos where I talk a little bit more about planes. But by working in front of me, the switch from the downward to my side to the upward is right here. Now I'm in an upward. I do that figure 8, and then the switch is right here. And it's got all the beats of a full plum flower spin, but it's more contained. You notice how I'm reaching to this side, but I'm not really reaching to this side. The only beat on this side is this one, right here, pretty close to the body. Okay, and this way I'm still crossing over, but I'm keeping the blades a lot more separate than they were. And pulling out straight from behind the back, figure 8, back into the Obiani spin. Alright, what that looks like when you string it together. A lot more contained. My right blade never gets further on my the left side of my body than right here. Left blade never gets further than right here, so I don't have these full reach overs for the upward spins. And it's kind of like off of that spin on the other side of the body, it's kind of like I'm slashing upwards to get it back over here into the downward beat. Slashing upwards diagonally. Slow this down as much as I can. And that slash can be subtle, like this, pretty much straight across, or more elaborate. But the slash is in front of the body. Okay, we're working on two planes here. Plane to the side, plane in the front. Okay, so that's 4 different versions of the full plum flower in dual wield. We've got the stalled version. We've got that same version without the stall. We've got the 6-beat version. And we've got the dual plane version. So again, this is a more complicated move. It's going to be a lot of timing. This is probably the most difficult move that you can do with opposing blades in a primarily downward wield with dual swords, or dual sabers. So it's going to take a lot of practice to get there. You'll find your favorite version of the dual plum flower, but it can be done. It can be done several different ways, probably different ways than what I've explained, but feel free to experiment. I will see you back here next time when we will deal with the dual upward version of the Obiani spin and the related plum flowers and super plum flower or super Obianis, etc. So until then, I'll see you on the forums.